Hi, people. Okay, so we're going to start with today's class. It's going to be something very fast. Please pay attention, okay, because this is really very important. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is what we're going to have for today. Let me show you the book. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Our book. Where's our book? Right here. Okay, we're going to start with vocabulary words. Okay, remember that the last class we started talking about hazardous materials and about PPEs. Okay, we're going to continue with PPEs. Now, right here, we're going to go to the vocabulary words. We're going to check vocabulary words, and then we're going to check some PPEs because you're going to have some examples that we are going to work with, okay? So first of all, let's begin. We have confined spaces. Confined spaces means all small areas without ventilation. There are certain areas, for example, mills. Let me show you mills. Okay, hold on, let me show you. Okay, and for example, people that work in certain mills, like these are mills, okay, these are very confined spaces. They are very small spaces. And there are certain type of mills, okay, that are used not for grains, but for other materials. And they are very risky. Okay, for example, some of them are tubular, okay, and these tubular mills occasionally, because they are made of steel or some metal, they need maintenance. So the person has to enter the mill, and then when they enter the mill, inside the mill, they have to weld. Remember welding? We saw welding in other units. They have to weld, and welding produces certain gases. Okay, so when this happens, okay, people have to use certain PPEs, okay, certain protectors. So the first one is confined spaces, small areas without ventilation. All right, so we're going to see later with the PPEs, maybe the use of a mask, of a particular mask or such. And then we have CEO detector. The CEO detector is letter E. Okay, what does a CEO detector does? It measures the amount of carbon dioxide. This one, for example, tells you if there is sufficient CEO, if the conditions are good for working in that place or in that area. Okay, so CEO detector measures the amount of carbon dioxide. Okay, they tell you if the working conditions are good for working or not, or if you need additional equipment. Number 3, exposure. Exposure is letter B. Exposure means to have a contact with danger. Okay, so for example, a person that welds, again, welding, a person that welds is exposed, is in contact with a particular danger. For example, the welder is in contact with fire and high temperatures. Okay, so he is exposed to getting burned. He is exposed to suffering from a certain burn because he's in contact with welding and heat and very hot temperatures. The next one, irritant. Number 4 is letter G. We have causes skin to react. Okay, so sometimes some chemicals, for example, in your case, you are environmental engineers, sometimes you are exposed to certain irritants, and these irritants cause certain skin reactions. They can cause like little bumps, little balls, okay, and your skin reacts, or your face can go red, okay, because they have certain irritants. And so for these irritants, you also need some specific protection, okay. And then we have toxic. Toxic is letter F. Toxic means poisonous. Again, there are many chemicals, okay? Most chemicals have a certain level of toxicity. This means that exposed to humans, to smell when you touch them, they are poisonous for your body, okay? If it's the case of toxic gases, for example, you breathe them and they're poisonous for your lungs, right? So toxic means poisonous. And then we have corrosive. Corrosive is letter A. Corrosive means that something burns the skin. Okay, for example, acid. So particularly some type of acids. Acid is corrosive because if it falls on your hand, for example, one tiny drop is going to burn the skin. Okay, so it's corrosive, it burns the skin. And then we have flammable. Number 7 is letter H. Something that is flammable means it catches fire easily. For example, I don't know, in the house, we have certain everyday things like Clorox, for example, which is very flammable. And if you put Clorox close to the stove, for example, in your house, well, it might catch fire because it's very flammable. Okay, it inside it in its composure, it has elements that make it easy to catch fire. Okay, and the last one, we have naked flames or sparks is letter C, sources of ignition. Okay, for example, this happens a lot of times with cars. Cars work a lot with naked flame and sparks, and this is what starts the engine, for example. Because when you turn on your car, the car produces a certain spark, a certain flame, and that produces the ignition, produces the fire inside the car. Okay, another thing could be, for example, a match. Okay, in serio, a match produces flame and it produces a certain type of ignition. In this case, it produces fire. Okay, so we have all of these different words and definitions. Okay, and we're going to work with these because you're going to have to find the specific protection for these hazards, these particular hazards. Okay, and that's where we're going to start. It says, which 4 types of PPE shown in the photo are mentioned at the meeting? Okay, at what meeting? Remember that right here, we started with this. We started with the Dorian Food Processing meeting agenda. Okay, and we had, for example, hazardous substances and personal protective equipment, harmful gases and fumes, and asphyxiation hazards, fire explosion hazards, machinery, guards and safety devices, access ways, guardrails and emergency exits. We had electrical installations and noise hazards. Now, down here we have, for example, gauntlets and helmets. We have ear protectors. We have goggles, not Googles. Googles, this is the page. We have goggles. And of course, everybody knows this now. We have a face mask, okay? So depending on the type of hazard, you use a particular PPE. Okay, in this case, in this presentation, this PDF, I am going to send you this PDF. You're going to have it in your WhatsApp. Okay, talks about personal protective equipment at work. Okay, and we're going to start working, okay, over here. Okay, we're going to start with what type of PPE is the most suitable, is the best one according to each different situation. Okay, so in the case of this one, we're going to start with the PPE for hazards with eyes. It says the hazards and types of PPE. We're going to start with eyes. Okay, what are the different hazards? Remember, hazards is like dangers. Okay, but hazard is the correct terminology for this kind of work, this kind of job. Okay, in your area, you work more with hazards than with danger. Okay, so have that into consideration. Hazards. The first one is eyes. And for eyes, what are the hazards for eyes? For example, chemical damage, chemical splash. Chemical splash means you are working with chemical and then you pour whatever chemical, you pour a chemical and that chemical splashes, jumps into your eyes. That's a big hazard. Also, metal splash. Remember when we were looking at welding and milling and cutting and all the different techniques for milling, for example, when the metal is being cut, you need to protect your eyes because metal can splash into your eyes, okay? So that's another hazard. Dust, okay, for example, construction workers are exposed to dust. Projectiles, like it can be any metal or practically any piece can work as a projectile for the eyes. Gas and vapor. Gas, occasionally, sometimes it's, even in the house, when your mom cleans or when you clean, you use certain chemicals that when you put them together, they make certain gases and then your eyes get irritated and then they start crying. Okay, so gas, vapor, and of course, radiation for the eyes. Those are the different hazards for eyes. What are your options? What options do you have for wearing? Okay, what PPEs, what different PPEs do you have for your eyes? It says options. You have safety spectacles. Okay, that could be one. If we look at safety spectacles, let me show you. I'll show you safety spectacles. Okay, here we have safety spectacles. A lot of people are using these now, for example, for the pandemic, but they are used a lot in different maquilas, depending on what they do, okay, on what they produce. So these are safety spectacles, okay. And then we have goggles. Vea cómo se escriben, okay. Acuérdense que Google es con doble O. Este es goggles, double G. Goggles are the ones that we have right here. Okay, hold on. These are goggles, safety goggles. Okay, it's different spectacles to goggles. The spectacles look more like normal glasses, and the spectacles don't. Okay, and we also have face shields, like the ones that we are using now in the pandemic. Okay, face shields. Okay, like everybody knows face shields, the ones that we're using now for the pandemic, but it's also a PPE. Okay, and visors. Let me show you visors. There you go. Okay. Visors is like this part, and then you get your protector. Okay, your protection shield. So visors. All right. So those are the hazards for the eyes. Okay, and then what do we have? What do we have for the head? Okay, what type of PPE should we use to protect our head? Well, we have hazards. What are the hazards first? Impacts, different kinds of impacts from falling or flying objects. Okay, so you have to protect your head from something that might be flying or falling. Think of a construction, for example. Okay, in a construction, something can fall from the top and fall on your head. So something that is falling. Risk of head bumping, okay, again, sometimes you need to wear a helmet, okay, so that if you bump into something, you don't get hurt. And hair entanglement. Hair entanglement means maybe you're passing through a very narrow space, and your hair, if your hair is loose like mine, your hair can get tangled. Okay, so you need protection for the head and maybe the hair too. What are the options? A range of helmets. Helmets, people. Okay, there are many different kinds. For example, these are for motorcycle. Okay, these are motorcycle helmets. But we also have construction helmets. Okay, so we have different types of construction helmets right here. There you go. Okay, and there are different helmets for different activities, of course. And then we have hard hats and bump caps. Let me show you bump caps. Okay, see, they're helmets too, but they're bump caps. And these are very much used, for example, in baseball. They use a lot of bump caps because the ball bumps, the baseball ball bumps into your head. So we have those okay, bump caps. The next one is for breathing, okay. What are the hazards for breathing? Well, number one, dust. Again, if you work in construction, okay, there are many different types of dust that can enter your nose, okay, and all of your respiratory system. So you have to take care of your breathing. Vapor, gas, and oxygen deficient as atmospheres. This means places where oxygen is very limited, okay? What are your options? What are your PPEs? Disposable filtering, face piece, or respirator. Very simple. Respirators in case the oxygen is deficient or in case there's a lot of dust or vapor. Half or full face respirators, air-fed helmets, and breathing apparatus. Okay, I'm going to show you two. I'm going to show you breathing apparatus. Okay, these are different types of breathing apparatus. Okay, firemen use it. Obviously, people who work in the ocean use it. You can see some construction workers. You can see people that work with fumes, like for fumigating houses. They work with breathing apparatus. Okay, so they are all related to that. And one more could be maybe a full face respirator. Let's see. Okay, so a full face respirator would be something like this. Okay, people, for example, who work with paint or with dust or with certain gases and vapors, they will use this one. Okay. Okay, another part of the body that needs protection is obviously the entire body. Okay, your whole trunk. What are some of the hazards for the body? Temperature extremes could be one. Okay, exposed to a lot of temperature, very hot or very cold. Okay, could be both. Adverse weather, a lot of rain, a lot of snow. Chemical or metal splash. I already explained this. When chemicals or metals jump into your body, they might cut you. Spray from pressure leaks or spray guns. Okay, that could also work. Impact or penetration. Impact could be just impact, or penetration, something actually goes into your body. Contaminated dust. Excessive wear. Excessive wear means when something is too big. For example, an overall is too big. It's okay. It can also be a problem. Or entanglement of own clothing. That's why, for example, some places they ask you to wear certain type of pants or certain type of shirts because they cannot be or too tight or too big or too, I don't know, or too thick or too thin. Okay, you have to be careful with your clothing. And what are the options? What is the PPE for protecting your body? It could be conventional or disposable or overalls. Let me show you overalls. I'm going to put disposable. We're using a lot of disposable overalls now with the pandemic. Okay, disposable overalls. Okay, and this could be like, in the case of what we have today. And then we have boiler suits. Okay, let me show you boiler suits. Okay, these are boiler suits. These are like the typical overall, like for mechanics and things like that. We also have special protective clothing, chainmail aprons. Chainmail, let me show you this one. Chainmail aprons. Okay. See, these are the ones. These are like for welding. Okay, they protect the person who is welding. They protect the person from heat. They protect the person from metal splashes in the body. Okay, so we have those. And finally, it says, or entanglement of, or high visibility clothing. High visibility clothing, for example, the ones that shine for traffic, for example. Okay, like for, there you go. Okay, vest like for traffic, or so that people can see where you are, like this. They should high visibility clothing. And then we have hands and arms. What kind of PPE do I need to protect my hands and my arms? Well, first, the hazards. What are the hazards? Abrasion, temperature extremes. Remember, we already saw abrasion, okay? Temperature extremes, cuts and punctures, impact, chemicals, electrical shocks, skin infection, disease, or contamination. There are many things for hands and arms. What are the options? Gloves, okay, gloves like construction gloves, gauntlets, mitts, wrist cuffs, and armlets. I want to show you gauntlets and mitts. They're different, okay? Gauntlets. Okay, these are gauntlets. They're called gauntlets because they are longer. Okay, they're not just gloves. Gloves come to the, sorry, to the wrist, but gauntlets, they can go all the way down here. Okay, so gauntlet protect you from welding, from heat, from chemical splash. They protect you from a lot of things. Okay, and then there are different material gauntlets for different purposes. Okay, so these are gauntlets. And then we have mitts. Okay, mitts are different. For example, this is a glove. A glove has the fingers. Okay, you can see the fingers. It has the fingers, and a mitten covers all of the fingers. So usually we see mitts, for example, for kitchen, for handling heavy, hot material, hot things. Okay, so these are mitts. Okay, boxing mitts, for example. There are different kinds of mitts. Okay, and armlets. Oh, let me show you armlets too. Armlets. Okay, so right here we have to, oh, wait a minute. Let me put PPE armlet. There we go. Okay, so these armlets help, also the same with chemicals, whatever, they help you to protect. And some of them use it even for protection against the sun, for example. That's another type of armlet. Finally, for feet and legs. Okay, what do we have for feet and legs? For feet and legs, the hazards are wet surfaces, electrostatic buildup. Okay, there are certain maquilas that have a lot of electrostatic buildup. Slipping means falling. Cuts and punctures, falling objects, metal and mechanical splash, and again, abrasion. Okay, what are the options here? What are the different types of PPE for these hazards? We have safety boots, okay, shoes with protective toe caps. Protective toe caps are the typical, let me show you. They're the typical kind of shoes that, when something hard falls on the floor, they cover it. Oh, these are very good because these help you with electricity. This is a toe cap, okay, the toe caps. And there are a lot of construction shoes. For example, construction shoes have toe caps. See, all of the construction shoes, usually construction shoes have a steel toe cap because that's the intention, to help them protect from anything inside the construction. Okay, penetration resistant midsole gaiters. Let me show you gaiters. Gaiters. Okay, these are gaiters. All right, they help you protect against humid surfaces, or if you work a lot with mud, lodo. Okay, they also help you to protect your legs or to protect your clothes. There are also different types of gaiters. Leggings, we all know what leggings are, and spats. Let me show you spats. Okay, again, well, let me show you construct PPE. This is different. Okay, right here we have them. Okay, these are the spats. They're also, there to protect you from certain chemicals, from certain objects falling, or projected objects. Those are spats. Okay, and so like I said, I'm going to send you this PDF so that you have this PDF with you, because you're going to need it. You're going to need it for the test, and you're going to need it for the activity. Okay, what's the activity, people? You have two. Number one, it says, discuss the hazards in the following situations and the precautions that should be taken. You have 4 statements here. For each one, you have to tell me. Number one, tell me, discuss the hazard. Tell me the hazard. Tell me the danger of the situation. For example, working inside a container with limited air circulation. What happens if I work inside a container that has very little air, very little oxygen? What is the hazard? Okay, what can happen to me? I'll give you one example, asphyxiation. Okay, so if I'm going to be in an area, in a container that has very limited air circulation, there's not going to be sufficient oxygen. The hazard can be, I can faint because there's not sufficient oxygen. I can suffer from asphyxiation. What are the precautions? What precautions should be taken? I should wear a respiratory apparatus, for example. Okay, como viene aquí. I should wear a respiratory apparatus because this respiratory apparatus is going to give me oxygen to stay inside the container. Okay, it's right there. And so you have to do the same thing for number 3, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Then we have number 5. It says, Stephanie, Dorian's senior safety officer, is attending a meeting on standard procedure for some engineering work that will be carried out at several of Dorian's plants around the world. Before the meeting, she made the notes. Read her notes and answer the following questions. Okay, you have to read and answer. What is meant by hazard analysis? What does it mean? What is another way to say safe system of work? Blah, blah, blah. Answer the 5 questions. And then you're going to jump this, you're going to jump this. We're going to do it together in class next week. But you have to work here. This is your big work. Okay, it says in pairs. You have to do it individually. Discuss suitable means correct, the best, suitable health and safety precautions and PPE for the following operations. On an existing steel petrol storage tank at a processing plant. Así mire, steel petrol storage tank. Okay, this is it. This is where the person is going to work. Aquí va a trabajar, o aquí. It could be this or it could be this. It doesn't matter. It's the same. Now, you have to tell me, okay? One is you're going to be both. You're going to tell me, okay, according to this, using these phrases, for example, an opening needs to be cut through the wall. Okay, what is the main danger or the main hazard in opening or cutting one of those walls? Remember, maybe you're going to weld, okay? So what are the precautions and PPE for opening and cutting through a wall of a steel storage tank? Okay, what is the danger and what PPE should the person use when opening and cutting through this wall? The same thing here. A new steel outlet pipe must then be welded into the opening. Okay, if I'm going to weld inside the steel petrol storage tank, what PPE do I need? What type of protection do I need? Use the phrases. For example, they'll have to take care of that, blah, blah, blah. Next, the existent paint must then be removed from the external surface of the tank by shot blasting. Look for shot blasting on the internet. Look at what it is. You can see videos on YouTube for shot blasting. Okay, the same thing. Tell me, what is the PPE that I have to use for this situation, and use one of these phrases. And finally, the tank must then be repainted. Think repainted. What is the PPE for repainting the tank? Okay, and use one of these phrases. Okay, so you have a lot of work. Everything is on page 55. For this work, okay, I'm going to give you until next Thursday to work on the platform, okay? So I already gave you the class, practically it's the 2 classes. You have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This work has to be done by Thursday, okay? Because Friday, next Friday, you're going to present this to me, okay? This presentation is for 10% of your grade. Okay, so it's very important that you do it correctly. All right. Wednesday, if you have any questions on Wednesday, all right, send me a message in WhatsApp. Okay, and maybe we can get together, okay, and we can talk about this or any questions that you may have. Okay, but on Wednesday. ¿Estamos? Okay, so do this. If you have any questions, message me Wednesday and I'll try to clarify as much as possible. 10% for Friday, okay? Entonces, have a nice day. I'll see you next week. Bye.